You're good? Yeah. Hey guys, how's it going? We're back at it. Well, as you can tell, our main man Paul is gone, but we gotta live with it. But I'm your interim host, Brendan Smith, with the greatest co-host in the world, Mike the Pig Crumb. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. Ready for the first mock draft episode, so it's gonna be fun.
Where can we find you on Twitter, Mike?
At CD Piglet, guys, nice and easy.
You can find me at Brendan_Smith26. Well, honestly, this is my guy right here. I always love talking to him on Twitter. We talked to him last week. EJ, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm excited to get on the podcast with you guys. First time on your guys' podcast this time. Brendan's been on my show a handful of times. Finally got Mike and Paul on my show last week, so glad to return the favor and talk some Cowboys football and some potential prospects.
The offseason is where most chaos happens. Oh, wait, my bad. EJ, where can we find you on Twitter?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at boys, the letter in the zone, and on YouTube at YouTube/EJ, the number 2 Savage. And yeah, I post a new show every single Tuesday night, and maybe another show here and there. Depends, but usually bring in a new guest every single week and just chop it up and talk Cowboys football. So, yep, there you can find me.
That's great. Honestly, I am more pumped for these type of episodes because, with free agency going on, we didn't ever get much, happiness because we don't really build the free agency at all. But when it comes to the draft. But before we get to that, EJ, I got a question. What inspired you to start creating content?
Yeah, so I was actually in the comment section of one of my favorite Cowboys shows, which is called Cowboys Can Fan podcast. It's another Grid Network associate podcast, which I'm on the Grid Network as well now. So shout out to those guys. But I was in their comment section just chopping it up, talking some Cowboys prospects. This was during last year's draft process, and I was just chopping it up so much that they were like, hey, would you ever be interested in calling in and talking about these guys? And so I did. And then they were like, man, you know a lot of stuff about this Cowboys prospects and everything draft related. So I was like, yeah. I followed it for a couple years now, and they asked if I wanted to do like a top 10 EJ Savage, top 10 wide receivers, top 10 cornerbacks, and it was a cool little experience that I got to do. That's another guy on the Cowboys Can Fan podcast, which is Botchy Eric, my guy. But yeah, I got on there and just talked it and chopped it up with those guys, and then eventually I kind of was like, man, I could probably do this, start up my own thing and talk about these guys and just talk Cowboys because I love doing it. So I did, and those guys helped me out a lot, trying to shout me out, and some other guys, Mike Tagg especially, helped me out a lot. So couldn't have done it without a lot of good friends helping me out along the way, but that's kind of the origin story of Boys in the Zone.
Mike Tagg's legendary hype man for the Cowboys.
Absolutely, shout out Mike.
Even right now, with the way they are in free agency, if he came out with a video talking about first week or the team or whatever, he could probably get me pumped up, even after how bad this offseason's been.
Yeah, Mike is always one of those guys that are just super, super optimistic, and sure, he can kind of, take his digs at the Cowboys front office, but at the end of the day, he's still going to be back there championing the Cowboys, and I respect him for that.
Yeah, team first. So, were you a college guy or NFL love of the game first?
Yeah, I started watching NFL first with my dad just because he was a Cowboys fan growing up, and this was in the bad years, the early 2000s, where we didn't have a quarterback. It was just the shuffling in and out of everybody. We finally got Tony Romo in there, and that's when I really started to become a fan of the Cowboys and follow them a lot more. Through that, I just watched college football a little bit here and there. Really started to get into college football. I'm an Oregon Ducks fan, so what really happened is Marcus Mariota came in there. I really loved him, and just seeing what he did for us for the Ducks at that time. I thought he was going to be a better pro than a lot of people thought probably, but it is what it is. His career kind of faded away. Now I think he's on where's he at? The Commanders, I think.
Yeah, I think he's. Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah, so he's still in the league, but yeah, I don't keep up as much with watching every single game like I do in the NFL for the Cowboys. But I watch here and there for the Ducks, and I try to tune into like the big games, so Ohio State versus Michigan, those big rivalry games and stuff like that. But I typically don't want to watch a ton of football until I start diving into film because I don't want to have a preconceived notion about a player before I actually really watch them on film. So
He goes crazy, that Oregon Ducks, man.
yeah.
You kind of talked about it, but how long have you been evaluating college players?
Yeah, so the first time I really started to pay attention to the draft and watching these guys more was that CeeDee Lamb draft. So I think that was 2021 or 2022 or something like that.
2020, I believe.
Oh, 2020. Yeah, so 2020. I don't think I started writing up like player evaluations and stuff like that until like 2022. So that would have been, this is my third year of actually writing up stuff about players and specifically kind of grading their strengths and weaknesses. But yeah, so during that CeeDee Lamb draft, I really started getting, heavy belief and opinion based arguments about certain players. And I felt heavily about Jerry Jeudy and about CeeDee Lamb and whatnot during that draft. I remember that so well. But yeah, so that was really the first time I started getting heavily into that.
I'm going to go off the show sheet early. Sorry. But so I've been doing this a long time too. And I have I remember one time, what was his name? The quarterback that I always talk about that I completely whiffed on. I thought Josh Rosen.
Josh Rosen.
Josh Rosen was my QB1. You know, when you evaluate a ton of players, you're gonna miss. You can't worry about that.
Yeah.
Do you have in your few years here? Do you have your Josh Rosen where you were like, this is my guy, and then it just didn't work out, or hasn't so far?
I'm trying to think of one that like really sticks out. I'll be honest, I'm not really the greatest at evaluating quarterbacks. Obviously, the NFL as a whole probably isn't anyways, unless you have that number 1 overall pick. It's a pretty hard thing to do. So I'm just thinking, I actually really liked Houston's quarterback coming out. He's on the Cardinals now. Last year, I liked him. Obviously, in the games he played, he wasn't all that great. Trayvon Moehrig, the TCU safety, a couple years back. I thought he was a bona fide, kind of stud dude. He hasn't really panned out as much there. Man, off the top of my head, if I would have been prepared for this question, I definitely would have had one.
Sorry.
But it's fine. I'm just trying to think if there was really like a heavy miss. I can definitely tell you like my heavy, like, oh yeah, I had this guy because I was big on Puka Nacua last year. I had him in my top 10 wide receivers. So. I'm looking good for that right now. But as far as super, underwhelming players, I guess you could maybe throw in, Marcus Mariota for me. But maybe that was just because I was a bias and I was kind of a kid at that time. And, he was so good. He never turned the ball over at Oregon. He had all the athleticism in the world, had the arm, but, it just never panned out in the NFL. So.
All right, sorry. I apologize. I'll get back on the show sheet now.
No, you're good.
From this class, who's the best prospect you've studied from this year's class?
Best prospect, without a doubt, is Marvin Harrison Jr. for me. I just think that the dude, he doesn't do anything bad. I think that his worst qualities are above average for most players. I think what he does really, really good is just everything you want from a wide receiver. He creates separation. He can be very good in contested catch situations, has great hands. I wouldn't say he's like an excellent route runner, but he's very good in that department. He can do it at a high level. I don't have any questions about that department in his game. I think he's a high IQ guy. Comes from an NFL bloodline, has the size, the speed, the strength that you want. He battles like the whole question about last year's class, like, does any of these guys, get off a press man really well? I think Marvin Harrison Jr. can do that. He'll eat you up in zone. He'll do whatever. I have 0 questions about him being an all-pro player eventually in his career. And at the very worst, I'm thinking like Pro Bowl multiple times during his career.
Not the same type of receiver, but as far as wide receiver prospect that I was like, he's Amari Cooper to me. When
Yeah.
Amari Cooper was coming out, I was like, this guy is, you might as well mark it down. This guy's going to be a stud.
Yeah, I thought the same. Amari Cooper, AJ Green, cut from that same kind of cloth. You just knew they were going to be good.
You just never saw any cold weather games in Alabama for Amari Cooper, so you didn't get to see the other half of what he would do. But there's that.
He was a beast. He's been a beast his whole career.
Those home and road splits didn't hit Amari Cooper until he went to the NFL.
True.
Still hurts me thinking about that Jets game. Well, which player is overrated in your eyes?
Man, an overrated player, I'm thinking, and I had to do some study on this question because I really looked at Dane Brugler and Daniel Jeremiah. This player is a top 20 player in these guys' eyes, and it's Tyler Guyton to me. And he's a former TCU Horned Frog for you, Britton. For me, he's not top 20. He's really, I have him slotted in outside of the 30. Mel Kiper Jr., I think he has him number 23 overall. I can see the reason why he is up there, because he has all the size in the world. He's an athletic dude. He's got the arm length, consistently gets better, even if it's incrementally year after year. But I didn't see a guy that was worthy of a top 20, like bona fide top 20 pick. Now, if you want to tell me like, hey, he's a project guy, you got to coach him up and he'll get there. I really do believe that's Tyler Guyton. But for me, I do think right now where he's being ranked, he is overrated just based on the film. Like he can get out in space and pull pretty well, but I don't think that he takes the greatest angles in his blocks whenever he's got out there in those pulling situations. I don't think his hand technique's all that great. His kick step sometimes can be slow off of the line. Not always, obviously. He's an athletic guy. But I just don't think that he has that internal clock and that chemistry with that Oklahoma O-line yet. And it was his first year there at Oklahoma. So, with time, I think he's going to get there. But just right now, I just don't see him as a top 20 guy.
I agree, man.
I think this is the answer everyone wanted. I'm not going to lie. I think this is what they all wanted
Caleb
to hear.
Williams overrated. He is not overrated in my opinion.
He's on the field. I think what happened is on the field he's great, but some of his antics off the field has made people dislike him. Yep. And so they throw that into his evaluation. But on the field, he's pretty damn good prospect. My dad's a Bears fan, and he's going to be very, very happy.
He's legit.
Yeah, he is. So
I think that with the conversation with Caleb Williams while we're at there talking about him, I don't even think it's a discussion between him and Drake May. I think Caleb Williams is far and away better right now than Drake May is as a quarterback prospect. And I know that some people on Twitter want to make it a discussion. I don't think it is. I think that he is much better in all phases of the game. I think Drake May can play hero ball a little bit too much at times. And it's, it's one of those things I really would have liked to see Drake May go in there and take 6 games playing behind Sam Howell and then come in. But they've traded him away to the Seahawks now, so it's probably going to be Drake May at that second overall pick, and he's going to get thrown into the fire. We'll see how it goes, but I'm not so sure Drake May is going to come out running.
I'm very upset that is it McCarthy? The Michigan kid.
Yeah, JJ
McCarthy. Yep.
Yeah, word is that Washington really likes him. Go him or Drake May. I'd be kind of happy. I'm nervous about them getting JC Daniels. I think JC Daniels and Drake May are closer than Drake May is to Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I think that Daniels. I think he has like over 50 starts in college. So he's a guy that's seen a lot of football, and those guys typically translate a lot quicker to the NFL. Drake May is under 30 starts in college. JJ McCarthy, I want to say he was under that 30 realm, or at least 35. So, and what they ask JJ McCarthy to do at Michigan wasn't really, suited to showcasing what he has and his ability. I mean, he was a 5-star recruit, so we're not talking about any slouch of a player here, but we've just seen with Jim Harbaugh, he's not an air raid attack of an offense. They like to just bang it in there and really rely on the run game. And so I think JJ McCarthy is going to surprise some people once he actually gets the chance. I think that he's more of a good quarterback in the NFL. Kind of like, I think he's going to be better than Daniel Jones. Don't get me wrong, but Daniel Jones is a serviceable starter when you get him in there. Obviously, he makes some stupid interceptions, some fumbles. He's cleaned that stuff up under Brian Dable, but I think he's going to be closer to that than completely fading out of the league like we've seen in years past with some other quarterbacks.
So who's this year for you? Who's your? I'm gonna change the question up a little bit now that I know that you love Puka Nacua. Who's your Puka Nacua this year? Who's the guy being slept on?
Ooh, late round, slept on. Trying to think of like a wide receiver I really love.
It can be a different position if you prefer.
Oh, okay. I think Braden Fisk come to mind. He's probably touted in the second round, but I think that dude's going to be a stud. I just love his get off. His motor is there. Sometimes he can whiff off some tackles in the backfield when he should wrap up a little bit better. But that's really my only concern. Plus his age. If he was younger, I think he's up there with the Byron Murphys, the Jerzon Newton kind of discussion based on film. But he's like a second round guy. I'm trying to think more of a later round guy that I really like. Trying to think specifically like wide receivers because I know that there's somebody that I love that I'm just not thinking of. Malik Washington comes to mind. I was big on the kid out of Houston, Tank Dell, last year as well. Obviously, he's a slider build, and it showed up, this past year when he did get injured. But I really like Malik Washington, what he can do over the middle, balance. He's just not afraid to take a hit. Yes, he's shorter, but he's beefed up more. So I really like him. I personally really like Xavier Legette. I kind of hope that he goes to Carolina at like 33, top of the second. I think that'd be a great fit for him. Obviously, he plays from South Carolina. But just pairing him with a young quarterback and allowing him to have an outlet and a chance to really get on the field early and often, I think he could be one of those sleepers. But, man, it's so hard between so many of these wide receivers this year. Honestly, there's so much similarities, and it's so much better of a class overall than last year's.
Yeah, it is.
Nice.
That's my remote to my chair.
Dude, at least it's not Chewbacca this time.
True. That's Paul.
Well, I thought that was Brendan's mom texting him. Why is your door locked?
I have an iPhone, sir. Well, EJ, if you had to pick one player for the Cowboys draft, who would you pick and why?
Yeah, for me, it'd be J.C. Latham. I really do hope this guy falls just because I think you have the versatility of him playing guard or tackle. At worst, I believe he's a very, very good guard. And at best, he can be a super, super good tackle for you. You hope that you can get a tackle in him, but if not, we've seen Tyler Smith there at left tackle. Maybe you can shift him out. And just thinking about J.C. Latham paired up with Tyler Smith, the nastiness, like the pure beef on that side of your line would just be so fun for me. I know like a lot of scouts see him more as a guard, and maybe that's the reason why he maybe does slide down the board a little bit. But this is a guy, I mean, started 2 years straight at Alabama. Now he is a right tackle, but they had the chance to shift him over to the left tackle starting in this past season, but they didn't. They just left him where he was. I just think that this dude has power. He has that athleticism. He's good in pass pro, good in run blocking, everything you want from your guard or tackle. I mean, I hope that I would put him at tackle. Let's just, from my opinion out there, I'd put him at tackle, let him fail there, and then shift him into guard. But I don't see that guy failing. I think that I'm really confident in what J.C. Latham can be, and he's kind of a lost kind of guy in the shuffle right now because Fontenot has jumped up. Amarius Mims, like you mentioned a little bit, has seem to jump up a little bit more in that realm of things. And so we're going to see one of these offensive linemen that early in the draft process we didn't think was going to fall, whether it's maybe a Olu Fashanu or it is JC Latham, or I'm trying to think of anybody else that I could see falling. But one of these guys is going to fall. You're going to have a pick there at 24. You feel like, okay, this guy can come in, and immediately start. And so he would be my guy.
We'll have a discussion about. I think the reason that people are worried about him is he's very guard body, but he blocks well as a right tackle. But I don't think a lot of teams think he could flip, that he could make the switch to left tackle, and because of that, obviously But let him fall to me. We'll talk about that later on. Do you think the Cowboys are good enough right now to go BPA, or do they just have too many holes, or do they have so many holes that they can go BPA because they have so many? What do you think about Dallas? Can they run BPA in this draft?
Yeah, I do. I personally, I don't think that they can go BPA the whole way through. Now, I will say with the caveat, I think that by the time that the Cowboys draft at 24, they are probably going to have a BPA pick, and it's going to be an offensive lineman. Now, that's not me saying that they're pigeonholed into that position necessarily, but it seems like the front office and everybody else is gearing towards, hey, we're picking an offensive lineman very early in this draft. Stephen Jones said as much earlier in a statement. So I think they're going to go offensive line first round, but I do think that it's going to be a BPA pick because legitimately that probably is going to be the best player available at that pick anyways, because there is an abundance of really good offensive linemen early in this draft.
Yeah. Well, actually, like that kind of goes right into the next question. But well, I guess this could be the same answer. But what position has the most depth and talent in this year's class?
I don't think it's offensive lineman. I honestly think it is wide receiver as a whole group. I think it's 4 rounds deep at the very least, and probably 5. We're going to be looking back on this draft like, dang, this guy went in the 5th round. Dang, this guy went in the 4th round, because there is so many good wide receivers in this class. Just, you've got guys that have NFL bloodlines like Brendan Rice. You have guys that, and McCaffrey. You got guys that are physical beasts like a Xavier Legette that we didn't have in last year's class. And Marvin Harrison Jr., for that matter, he's a physical beast. Rome Odunze, another really physical guy. So, and then you've got the smaller guys too that are really intriguing. Malik Neighbors up at the top, extremely impressed with his tape. You've got, I'm trying to think of a Taj Washington out of USC too, who's really good. Malik Washington I mentioned as well. There's so many wide receivers that I like. I haven't mentioned either A.D. Mitchell, both the Texas guys, Xavier Worthy, both of those guys, really good. I just think that it's going to be hard to not hit on one of these guys if you spend a top, 3 pick as far as like rounds go. So anywhere in the first 3 rounds, you probably feel really good about any wide receiver you pick just because of the abundance of talent. Offensive line is very good in the first round, but ultimately because it's so good, I think a lot of those guys are going to fly off the boards very early. So I'd go wide receiver.
Okay, so the next question, the actual question is what position is must draft for Dallas? But I'm going to flip it a little bit. I want to ask you, if you could guarantee a big-time player in the draft at any one position for Dallas, what would you want that position to be? Like, you drafted him and you know it's going to hit, and it's going to be a big-time 10-year starter, Pro Bowl level starter.
I would say, I really would say offensive tackle, just because from what we know in the NFL is offensive tackles that are really good, 10-year starters, high-quality guys, they don't ever get to free agency. So you don't have the optimism of, oh, hey, if we get this position solved, like a wide receiver, like there's going to be good wide receivers all the time that are in free agency, and you can probably pick one of those guys up. Not only that, but it's almost every single year now where we feel really good about a wide receiver class because the abundance of talent and so many athletic players coming from college transition to that position. So if you're asking me, you've got to nail one pick. You already, and this is under the assumption we're keeping Dak Prescott moving forward. It would be offensive tackle for me, just because I feel like you at least got these next 2 years with Zach Martin. You've got a foundational piece in Tyler Smith. You can probably come out of this draft with a super solid center. I believe that position goes pretty deep. And then you look at the guard class as well. And their possibility of them shifting into center. You got the McCormicks, you've got the Christian Mahoganies, some Cooper Beebes we talked about last week. So I feel very, very good about those, positions stretching it and more of a dart throw piece versus offensive line, especially offensive tackle. If you tell me that you whiff on your first round pick and it's an offensive tackle, I feel horrible about that versus you nail that pick, he's a 10-year starter, and the other picks are so-so. So that's where I'd go.
And if I told you DT?
Yeah, defensive tackle is one of those things. It's weird because I don't really love any of the defensive tackles as true one-tech DTs. Most of the guys that I love in this class are more of the three-tech guys. And so I could see like a Byron Murphy, and I know Jerzon Newton can kind of shift between the one tech and three tech a little bit, and even play some edge some. And I don't have any, questions about him being a good pro. But for me, I think the offensive tackle is more important than the D tech or the defensive tackle. If you spent the pick on that, I'd feel like, okay, it has to be the right prospect for me. But if you're nailing the pick and he's a 10-year starter, I'm thinking like he's got to be along the Chris Jones, Aaron Donald kind of mold for me to really be happy and excited about it versus just somebody that's good but not great, which is a lot of the DTs in the league anyways. So
I'm more pumped for this segment about about your whole mock draft because Mike, I'll take care of the questions. This is more for Mike's judginess about to all come out. And he's going to talk for like 30 minutes straight, and I'm pumped for it.
No, I'm going to be good. I talked enough on EJ's podcast. Are you kidding me?
There we go.
Well, EJ, this is of course your mock draft. So can you tell who we took at pick 24?
Yeah, pick 24, and this is just me rolling through a PFF mock draft. I didn't make up, a player sliding to me. This is actually what fell to me during the draft. And it was between Graham Barton and J.C. Latham. For me, you already heard me talk about J.C. Latham earlier. It was a no-brainer for me. I just felt like, and especially with like the Cowboys, and especially what Jerry Jones has been saying, like, there might be the possibility of us shifting Tyler Smith out there to left tackle. Like, if that's the case, I feel incredibly good about J.C. Latham switching in there at guard versus a Tyler Guyton or a Jordan Morgan. I just feel like he will be a better guard than either of those players, and even Graham Barton to that extent. I have supreme belief that this guy can be kind of in that same realm of a Tyler Smith in there at guard, like in the phone booth. He's just so powerful, strong, and he's only going to get better. I think that Mike kind of nailed it. Like, he does have a guard build. Like, he has that kind of big booty. And Brendan's over there trying not to laugh. I knew he was. I didn't want to look at Brendan because I knew he was going to start laughing. But he really does. He kind of looks like that guard. But like I said, shift him out there to tackle. See if he fails first before you shift him in the guard. And if you have to, you can always shift Tyler Smith out and then have a really powerful left side moving in the future.
Was this more of a BPA move or a need pick?
Both. I think that J.C. Latham would be your BPA at this spot if he landed there at 24. I really do. I think that Dane Brugler had him up at 15 in his top 20, and Daniel Jeremiah had him at like 13 in his top 20. So, and don't quote me on that, but I definitely know he was in their top 20 for sure. But he's one of those guys. If he makes it to 24, it would probably be PPA, and it fills the need of the tackle position. So both, in my opinion.
Is he a Cowboy type of player they would draft?
I think under the Mike McCarthy, coaching and what he wants, I really do. I think that he's hard nosed. He's a guy that comes from a prestigious program in Alabama. Sure, maybe they might not love him as a true stand on an island kind of guy like Tyron Smith was, where you don't have to ever help him. But I mean, that's asking a lot for a rookie to come in and be as good as Tyron Smith, anyways. So, I think he is a Cowboys pick. He doesn't have the questions of the short arms like a Jordan Morgan. He doesn't have the rawness like a Tyler Guyton. So, I think he would fit right in with what they're trying to do here.
What about you, Mike?
I love the pick. I think he definitely fits. Here's the one thing that I'll say about JC Latham. He's BPA. He would, if he falls to 24, even if if Dallas goes in and goes, I know he can't be left tackle. Even if they totally believe that, you still make that pick. Two reasons. One, as EJ said, the left side would be disgusting with Tyler Smith at left tackle and JC Latham at left guard. And that would just be nasty. But another thing that people forget is that if our offensive line is Tyler Smith, TJ Bass, Brock Hoffman, Zach Martin, Terrence Steele, there's a chance that Terrence Steele is our worst offensive lineman in that group because he's not a very talented pass blocker. He just has never been. And his power went away after the injury last year. Now, maybe he bounces back and is great. Maybe he doesn't. We've seen it happen to Michael Gallup. He just never did. So there is a chance that next year you could put Latham at left guard, and then in a year you go, you know what, we gotta out here with Steele. Let's get out of this contract. We're gonna save us that money. And now you have a guy like Bass who we've seen could play. Maybe they draft a center later on. We'll see EJ's mock here, and they move late, and you have Tyler Smith and Latham as your tackles with Bass, a rookie, and Martin going forward, or Hoffman. So. I just think you don't pass up on guys like that just because he's not. Well, let's get a worse guy because he fits for sure exactly in a spot. And don't pick a worse guy because you don't know how it's going to fit in. Take the better guy, and you can work it out how you need to. So Latham, I love that pick, and he definitely fits a Dallas guy that they're not going to pick Morgan to play tackle. He just doesn't have the arm length. They're just not going to do stuff like that. Latham, even if they don't believe he could be a left tackle, he would fit at left guard. He would fit at right guard. He would fit at right tackle. So he can hit 3 different positions, and 2 of those positions are question marks, and the other one might be gone in a year at right guard. So, yeah, you pick that guy. You make that pick.
Yeah. No, and in another let's say that Terrence Steele is just dog water there at right tackle. You could shift him over there and play along Zach Martin as well, which would help him and allow him to kind of play free with knowing that he has an All-Pro Hall of Fame player there at that position as well. And then you move forward with that lineup as well, and maybe Tyler Bass and Hoffman shift in there, and you just get your best 5 on the field at that point. So yeah, I think anywhere you play him minus center would honestly be good, even if it didn't work out at left tackle.
This is the duo that everyone wanted to listen to. Y'all two talking about draft prospects. All right, EJ, who do we got at 56?
56, and I'll put this on the caveat, my grading scale is not what happened with the PFF mock draft simulator, and I even turned down the setting of randomness. I put up public and PFF board in the middle, everything. Edgerrin Cooper fell to me at 56. It's a no-brainer. I'm taking this guy. He plays like a freaking Donovan Wilson, but he's bigger, better at coming downhill, and he can give you pass rush. Like that's the mold of player you're getting in Edgerrin Cooper. Just super hair on fire, gonna go up and hit you. Obviously not as clean as, a Peyton Wilson in the coverage aspect of things, but he's one of those guys I truly think can be sideline to sideline in the run game. I don't think he guesses. I know some people have said that he kind of guesses in his run fits. I don't think he does. I think he's pretty solid in that respect. Obviously, you're not going to know exactly what the offense is doing 100% of the time, but that's just staying, controlled in your keys and waiting for the offense to dictate what you're doing, and then you react and go and get the ball carrier. So I think everything that, from what I've seen on film, I think starting out, he would probably be your second best linebacker. Obviously, you got Kendricks, but as soon as he starts getting the mental processor down at the NFL level, he would be the best linebacker on your roster, in my opinion, from almost day one. Especially if he comes in and he has a Leighton Vander Esch type season where he's in the backfield just living back there, he's your best linebacker on the roster immediately. And he can give you some pass rush, which we possibly might need with only D-Law, Micah, and Sam Williams as your real only edge rushers. So that's another plus to his game as well.
You rank him above Overshown?
Yeah, I would. I have a better grade on him than Overshown last year. So, and plus the Overshown's coming off the ACL. So I think that he could legitimately be one of those dudes that are in the league for a long time and they're really good at what they do. I don't think he's ever going to be a good coverage linebacker, but the more he understands zone schemes and what he's asked to do, and especially in like Mike Zimmer's defense, he asks a lot more of the safeties more so than the linebackers in the coverage respects, so that would help out Edgerrin Cooper as well.
Well, I'm going to ask this again. Was this a BPA or was it a need pick?
Both again. I think that BPA, obviously, like, you could not tell me that he wasn't one of the best available players at that position at 56 if he got there. Now, everybody and their brother knows the Cowboys need linebackers, so of course it's a need pick. What I will say is, like, there probably was, and I don't really remember who was on the board, there probably was another player that I probably would have had ranked over Edgerrin Cooper, but for the Cowboys and their needs, it was a need pick with BPA in mind. So I would err more on the need pick, but definitely BPA as far as how I graded him out.
Well, this is a question I just thought of, but is going BPA and it being a need, does that show more for how well this draft class is, or more of this how Dallas just needs help everywhere?
I don't know. Like, I think obviously offensive tackle is a high positional value or high value position at the next level. Linebacker, not so much. So it might just be a result of the other NFL teams saying, hey, linebacker, like, we can't spend this much capital on a linebacker that we don't think is truly generational. And if he was generational, why are you taking him in the first round anyway? So if he drops to the second round, I think that's kind of indicative on how the NFL and front offices look at linebacker. But overall, man, I think that realistically the Cowboys, and they did it to themselves, but the Cowboys have so many needs to fill. It's almost just like, all of these picks are need picks to some respect.
Well, it seems like your guys in your chat are agreeing that none of these players will be there at any of our picks. So,
like I said, hey, this is the PFF mock draft simulator, letting these players fall to me. If you want to say the Cowboys jump up a few picks, let's say to 47, just to go get their guy because they feel like they need that help, so be it. But this was my second round selection. So it is what it is.
Is he a Cowboy type?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, Mike Zimmer, like, it's hard to say, like, is he a Cowboys type or not, because there's so much uncertainty with this coaching staff moving forward. All of them are pretty much on 1-year deals. But as far as, like, the Cowboys, he's not a small school guy. He comes from Texas A&M, so that checks one of the boxes. he has the size for the linebacker position, so that checks off another box. He's a guy that seems to be pretty instinctive and smart, so that checks another box. So if I'm basing off of how they draft in the past, I think he does fit into those molds for linebacker and their thresholds that they like to see in the building.
What do you think about this pick, Mike?
I think this pick is CeeDee Lamb-esque. Like, the chances he gets to 56, you would run to the podium to get him. Word now is that he's likely a first-round pick. I would be shocked if he got out of the top 40. And I'm not even like I'm not a huge Edgerrin Cooper fan, but I'd be shocked if he got out of the top 40 players. You just don't find that size, athleticism, length. His mindset's good. His mentality's good. I have a couple worries with him in motion, but if you watch his 2022 tape, he was picking the wrong hole every other play. 2023, he improved leaps and bounds. And so that's a good thing to show. Like, the more he gets time playing the position and the more he gets with good coaches, that stuff will clean up, because I don't think he may sneak into day 2 if he came out in 2022. He was that raw and like seeing it and reacting. Yeah. But in 2023, he flipped a pretty big switch on that. The other thing I'd like to see him do more is he reminds me of LVE, as he's an avoid blockers. Not that he can't take on blockers, but his first instinct is to try to get around them instead of hitting them in the hole. And for Dallas, like, I really would like a hit in the hole guy, but not at the expense of Edgerrin Cooper falling to 56. I'm not, we're nitpicking a player that I'm thinking is going top 40. We're not talking about a guy falling to, and then you're like, oh, well, is he going to be perfect right out of the, like, screw that. You go and get him. He's going to be a monster if he gets with the right coach. He's going to be a disgusting player. So I would run to grab him at 56. That would be 2 guys that you would be like A++ value. And I'm a very big value in the draft guy.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like, do I ultimately think Edgerrin Cooper falls to 56? Probably not. But as me, when I'm running through the mock draft, let's say I'm Jerry Jones, like, if that actually happens in real life, I'm not like, oh, that would never happen. Like, it's the freaking draft. It happened. I'm going to take the dude. I'm not going to force a pick just because, oh, I don't think this. Like, honest to God, we have no idea what the front offices think. Like, the media can try to say, oh, this guy is bona fide, top 30, top whatever. But at the end of the day, we don't know. Like, this has happened so many times before where we think that there's going to be somebody not be there. CeeDee Lamb, as you mentioned, or I'm trying to think of somebody that just crazy fell. A JOK maybe. One of those guys where everybody's super hyped up in the media world, but they end up falling deep into the draft, and you can go ahead and grab them later. So, we don't have those. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers. We don't have those medicals. We don't understand how they did in the interview process. I mean, it's not just, hey, my name's Edgerrin in the interview process. No, these guys are pulling out a whiteboard. They're running through plays. They're breaking down film. They're understanding, like, hey, what are you doing on this specific play? They're trying to pigeonhole you into, I don't know. That's really what they're trying to look. Are you a smart, intelligible, intelligent player, and trying to figure out if you fit into their scheme? I think a lot of people look at a player and say, oh, this guy's really good, he should go here, but does he fit into a 3-4, a 4-3? Like, those are questions for every front office. Does he fit in what we want to do right now? Or does he fit into, well, he might be able to transition and, be this type of rusher? No, it's just based on what they run specifically, and that's how some teams draft.
Yeah, Tyler Smith got on the Dallas's board after they talked to him. And they were like, if we could take his mindset with these traits, we'll develop him into a guy. Our first ever episode of this show, the first one we ever did was doing our fantasy draft, and it was the year CeeDee Lamb came out. And my job was to come up with my perfect first 3 rounds, fantasy, what would we like? And I told people, I go, listen, we're doing a fantasy draft, but we're being realistic. So I'm not going to say Dallas is going to draft CeeDee Lamb. I'm dead ass. I literally said that on the podcast.
Yep.
And then it ended up in real life, we ended up getting CeeDee Lamb. So I'm not one of the guys that's like, oh, there's no way he falls. It's impossible. Like that's you never know what's going to happen.
I'm right there with you.
Well, that draft class in general, though, everyone's thinking Dallas probably is going to end up going Diggs in the first round. They get him in the second while also getting CeeDee Lamb. Like, those 2 picks right there goes to show no one knows what the hell they're talking. Like, they know the players, but they don't know what's going on. And Bears could do something really stupid and be like, oh, it's the Bears. It's whatever. We don't
Leave
expect
my dad's
much.
team alone.
The Bears. The Bears.
All right, let's get to the third round. Pick 87. Who we got?
Yeah, so I went with a need pick here more. So to answer your question after this, Brendan. But I went with Cedric Van Pran out of Georgia, the center. High IQ player. He has good size. I think he's like 310 or something like that. When you think of a center and what you want them to do, you really want to know how their mindset works. And from what I've heard with Cedric Van Pran, he's a very intelligent player. He has a high IQ. Obviously, he knows what to do as far as getting the blocks lined up for the rest of the line. I didn't see problems with his snaps and stuff like that. I thought that he was pretty good in the run blocking department, solid in the pass blocking department. Obviously, it's a third-round pick, so you can't be super like, oh, he has to be a great in any one category. But I think he's solid at all of them. I think that he is one of those guys. I think he's bigger than Tyler Biadasz. I don't know how big Tyler Biadasz was coming out, but he's not a guy that I would feel like, hey, you have to help him every other play like Tyler Biadasz. I think he can hold his own. It comes from another highly touted program in Georgia. I only watched a little bit of his game. I didn't get completely to it today, but I saw a little bit of he wasn't the greatest athlete, but this is a third-round pick. Like I said, like you're shooting for what can you point out as a weakness more so than what are his strengths. And I think that you got to look at his high IQ. You got to look at his ability to get the right blocking scheme lined up for each specific play, and understand where he came from. On a Georgia line that's put out a lot of good offensive line players in the past. So more of a need pick for me because I definitely had better players on the board whenever I drafted him, but Cowboys need a center really, really bad. And I was staring at one in the first round, but I opted to go with the tackle there and see where the cards laid later on in the draft, and I got Cedric Van Pran.
Mike, how you feel about this draft pick?
Oh, Van Pran. First of all, Van Pran is a Cowboys guy. Like, if you made me bet, would they end up drafting Jackson Powers Johnson or Cedric Van Pran, I would put my money on Van Pran. They like his value somewhere between second and third round. Maybe they trade back in the second or trade up in the third. I think if you gave them an ideal pick, I told everybody last year my Cowboys guy was DeMarvion Overshown. Most people's Cowboys guy this year would be Jonathan Brooks. That makes a lot of sense. Mine is Van Pran. I think if Van Pran fell to 87, they would have the pickup in less than a minute. Like, that is their guy. They really like him. He's very smart, as EJ said. He's also real quick off the snap, and that helps he's not a giant athlete, and he's not not powerful, but it's what makes him more powerful is he's able to beat people places because he gets off the snap before you, and he's a very good game planner. Like, he knows on this type of run, we need to have this done. What steps do I need to take to get there first?
Yeah.
Like you said, third round pick. He has problems with footwork. He'll lunge too much. He'll overextend some or overset. But hell, that's a thing on JC Latham. And that guy's a top 20 guy. And they'll tell you he'll lunge sometimes or he'll overset and give up his inside shoulder. That's something you develop with coaching. If you can get Van Pran, if we could get him in the 3rd round, you don't know how much. I'm a big Van Pran fan. I really like it. 3-year starter in the SEC, super smart, has a great game plan. His flaws are all coachable flaws. There's not something like super short arms. His arms aren't the longest, but he does the way he gets off and the way he game plans. It helps him with his technique stuff that he needs to learn still with better coaching. So
did you think that he had more of a problem with like power guys or speed guys? Because for me, whenever I was watching just a little bit, I thought that he did kind of give that shoulder up a little bit to guys that were a little bit more nuanced from the inside. Now, like I said, his strengths are knowing, hey, this guy, he's a bad matchup for me. Let me pull my guard in and get the help. So that's one of the things that it's like he doesn't let his weaknesses get exploited. But I do think that versus somebody like Aaron Donald would absolutely obliterate this kid, in my opinion, just because he's such a nuanced pass rusher, has the counters. If it's a guy from the inside that's just going to give him a bull rush, I think he can handle that easily.
He gets off the ball too quick. So his anchor isn't some super anchor. But when you're off the ball and set and ready for somebody, go ahead and try to bull rush me. We'll see what you could do. And like you said, he knows the game well enough to know how to set himself up to succeed. Yeah. He's going to get beat sometimes. He's going to mess up his footwork. He's going to do this and that. But I just think that you could be ended up getting a kid. Like if they took Van Pran at 56, I don't love the value. I think he's a player between 60 and 75. 65 and 75. But if they got him at 56, I wouldn't mind because I know in 2 years I have a center that I'm not going to worry about starting. He's going to be a damn good center. He would be Biotish and maybe a little better as a rookie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that my biggest thing with Biotish is he wanted to be an enforcer. But when he came up and he kind of got lined up against somebody that was an enforcer, he kind of went timid mode, like I can't beat this guy, got in his head, and it really hurt him. I don't think Cedric Van Pran is going to have that much pride where he's like, I'm gonna try to do this by myself and prove to myself. Like, I think he's just gonna be like, listen, this guy's one of the best in the game. I'm gonna ask for the help here. Especially like if you're only getting 4 rushers anyways, and like I said, he's a high IQ player. If he's reading the defense is like, okay, yeah, I don't think any linebackers coming here, only 4 rushers, then you have the ability to have that help, or you're not even getting anybody on the one-on-one matchup. You're helping the guard. So, it's one of those things. 3rd round, you can't be nitpicky. You got to just look at their strengths and like, hey, these are foundations that we can build upon, instead of saying, I don't like this, and really just downplaying a player and letting that cloud your judgment about, I don't want to take him because of these things. Like, that's what a developmental player is in the 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round. So you got to have those guys as with flaws. And there's a reason why they're down there, because they have those flaws. So as long as you have the trust in your coaching staff to build them up and get better continually year after year, this is a pick that you feel good about because of the high IQ, because of the willingness to learn, because of the 3-year starter, like you mentioned. He's a guy that comes in prepared, wants to work, wants to get better.
Yep, I love him.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious, Mike.
I'm a big fan of this draft because I believe the value for every pick is, I would expect Latham to go in the top 15, and he dropped to us at 24. So you're talking 9 picks better. Edrin Cooper, I'd say in the top 40 and that's pushing it. So 16 picks. And then Van Pran, I would think, would be in the top 65. And you're talking another 20 picks, So I love the value of this draft. As far as I know, I grade it coming up. We can just go through, but grade wise, it's going to be an A because the values of the picks, if they don't work out, they don't work out. People don't develop. It's still a draft. You don't know what's going to happen, but You take guys like this and you just go with it and go, hey, look at the value I'm getting. I'm going. So I love this draft.
Yeah, I mean Cedric Van Pran, just looking at this PFF mock draft board, he's the 5th overall interior offensive lineman on their board. So, and that's talking about Jackson Powers Johnson and Zach Frazier, which are 2 fringe first round guys. The only other guys is Christian Haynes and Christian Mahogany ahead of him. So you feel really good.
Mahogany.
Okay, there you go. So you'd have him top 4 then.
Yeah.
Well, depending on if you're counting Graham Barton in interior line too, but yeah.
Well, after this draft, what other needs does Dallas need to fill?
After this, only the 3-round mock draft you talk about?
Yeah. So these 3 pick. So after round 3, what does Dallas need to do to fill their needs?
You got to pick up a running back. I think, and for me, I didn't pick running back just because I kind of just don't see the value of the position anymore. I feel like you can get one, every other year kind of a deal and just fill the, continue to recycle those guys. I think that a wide receiver would be in the best interest of the team just because it's an insurance policy. Like Cooks after this year, he's not tied to you. Jalen Tolbert, let's say like he has a solid year, kind of a Cedric Wilson-esque year. You feel good about him, but then he slots in there to your wide receiver 2 next year, and you have him only for 1 more year on contract after that, because remember, you only have 4 years on a rookie contract unless you have the 5th year option. He wasn't a first round pick. In my opinion, they probably should pick up another cornerback. They only re-upped Jordan Lewis for the 1-year deal. So corner is completely in play. Honestly, I think you can never have too many offensive linemen that are good and solid. Obviously, you got TJ Bass and Hoffman, and I really do believe that the Cowboys are going to want to play those guys some this year. Asim Richards, you don't really know what you had there, but you can never have too many of those guys. So if you can find another guy late round that you can develop as well, that's in there. And then defensive tackle, you got to figure it out. You lost Hankins to the Seahawks, and I think it was for like 1.3 on the cap this next upcoming year, $2 million deal. So you got to fill that need in Hankins. You got to get a run stuffing guy that can take on double teams and just clog that middle, allow your linebackers to play free and diagnose those gaps and really come downhill at those runners. And I think if you could fill all those positions, I'd feel good about the Cowboys next year. And then you factor in the second wave or third wave, really, of free agency after the draft.
Mike, is there anything for you to add to that?
No, I think he nailed it. I mean, you could say edge, but if you're drafting one, I mean, how could you say he's any better than Fihoko or Golston as a 4th rusher? You just got to let them see what they could do, unless you're getting one early to be like, this guy's replacing DeMarcus Lawrence. I think defensive tackle and the positions he mentioned, cornerback, and them are more important.
Do you guys think that the Cowboys realistically, and we haven't seen this in the past, do you think the Cowboys could move off one of our older players and ship them for a later round pick to get more capital in this draft, even if it is a player that is beloved by the team, like a DeMarcus Lawrence or maybe a Malik Hooker or somebody like that is one of those players that's getting up there in age, and we love them, but I don't think that this team would be necessarily opposed to possibly picking up a later 3rd round pick, 4th round pick for one of those guys. And it sucks because those are guys that, you've grown to love, but what's your opinions on that?
If I felt like we were trying to win, I'm not trying to lose DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah.
But the way they're doing it now, I have no issues with trading him and trying to get a pick for even this year. If they could get a 4th rounder for him, maybe a 3rd next year, I would do it, because I don't really see them as being able to contend with the top teams in the NFC for a championship. And I'm not one of those that's like, oh yeah, let's win 10 games and be in the playoffs, and not like last year was fine. I thought we were one of the teams that had a chance to compete. We were in that. We were under San Francisco. We were in that range, so we should have been able to compete. This year, I think they've lost too many pieces. So I would do it. I have no issue doing it for the right price.
Yeah. Real quick, would Zach Martin ever come up in that discussion for you?
It would have to be what would have to happen is it would have to be a draft like yours, where we drafted 2 linemen in the first 3, and then they said, well, we have Tyler Smith, TJ Bass, rookie center, rookie tackle, and then because TJ Bass can move to right guard, then you draft a tackle to put at left tackle. Tyler stays at left guard. You drafted a center. You have Hoffman as your backup, Richards as your backup, Walesko as a backup, and then you ship off Martin. But I mean, you got to get something for Martin.
Yeah,
Martin,
you'd have to
pick. Like, it's got to be somebody that's going for a title and wants to get a guy. Like the Jets would have to offer you, a first next year to get something like that. If they really wanted to bolster and go for it all. But otherwise, Martin's staying.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, realistically, I just don't want to have to see like a Cowboys legend not have a chance at a Super Bowl strictly because this front office won't do anything. It's just getting to the point where it's like, let the guys that are still in their prime have a chance. Because if you're not going to re-up Dak, you don't have a quarterback next year, and you just let him walk. It's pointless to leave those guys around on your team just getting old.
And if they re-up Dak, they'll just use him as an excuse not to sign anybody to get, I know every other team's able to do it, but our team just can't do it when we pay the quarterback. So,
yeah.
What do we got left, Brendan?
It's just pain. Oh, Mike, what changes, if any, would you make to this draft? I don't think you're going to say almost any, but
none. I mean, you're telling me ideally, I would like to get a wide receiver, the quality of Edrin Cooper in the second round. I think that would be awesome. But when a guy like Edrin Cooper falls, what are you going to do? You're not going to not like, that's where you mess up in drafts, where you're like, well, we have Kendricks and Overshown and Clark. We'll be able to get by. We can get a later linebacker. Let's try to get a receiver here. Well, this receiver is like, a mid-second round receiver. Cooper's a first round, almost first round linebacker. Yeah, but we don't need. That's where you fuck up a draft. So, yeah, I'm not going to switch it. When guys like that fall to you, you take them.
Well, the last thing we got to do is for you to grade his draft.
Hey, you just took too many good value picks. I wanted to be tough, but, I mean, how do you go again? Latham fell to you, you took him. Edrin Cooper fell to you took him. You needed a center, and one of the best ones in the draft that played for a big-time program, won national titles. He fits perfectly in what you need to do. You took him. Like, there's nothing to complain about. There's no reason to over, try to be more than, a B plus because no, you got great picks. It's an A, period.
EJ, why do you have to do good at your job? Like, we're supposed to make Mike mad over here. You're supposed to go,
hey, man,
let him go off, but you just did too well.
Jerry, I posted a photo. Jerry apparently is a fan of my show.
I saw that.
So hopefully Jerry is watching this. He's gonna get me on the scout department. Hopefully I can help him over there and maybe whisper in his ear a couple things about free agency while I'm there. And hopefully he'll listen next offseason. We can actually go for it. He's gonna re-up Dak, and we're actually gonna go for something more so than a Dollar Tree shopping spree.
That would be nice.
Well, that's all we got. I honestly had a blast. I don't know about y'all. I'm still learning about all this stuff, so hearing y'all talk is just awesome.
For sure.
I just make it up. I don't know who these people are.
Who is Cedric Van Pran? Sounds like some dude from a book or something. Come on now.
And I heard his name was Cedric Van Pran Granger.
Yeah, I've heard that too. And if that's true, then I feel even better about the pick because that means he's related to Hermione. And no, I'm just kidding. No, I have heard that too, which is funny too. Yeah.
Well,
I love that you knew Hermione Granger, so that's awesome too.
Well, EJ, before we get out of here, tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, Boys in the Zone. That's the letter N, not IN, on Twitter. or X, whatever you call it. Elon's World, whatever. And then on YouTube, you can search me up at Boys in the Zone probably too, and it will come up. But /EJ, the number 2 Savage, and it should pop up as well. I'm also on Instagram. I very rarely post there, just not super big on Instagram because it's mostly ads there. But yeah, it is what it is. Follow me there, I guess. And I also have a TikTok. I've been kind of in the TikTok realm a little bit more, posting little videos, but that's Boys in the Zone as well. So search me up there as well.
Mike, where can we find you?
I am going to say, as you guys know, I say CD Piglet nice and easy because my username is easy. So I'm going to mark him down to an A- because you got a hard ass Twitter username. So A- now, CD Piglet. Still a great draft though.
Hey, that's fine. It's sure as hell is better than last year's.
Oh yeah.
There's no Michigan player, so I can't, complain about it or anything. No, honestly, I had a blast. So, guys, if you're not following EJ on Twitter or on YouTube, what are you doing? I've had a blast talking with this man for almost a year now. Like, it's nothing but great times. You really need to follow him. Y'all can follow me at Brendan_Smith26, man. We're out of here.
Peace. Hey, thanks for everybody stopping in.
Seriously.
Have a great one.